Hello, and welcome back to today's episode of the Breadwinner Podcast. If you've been listening for a while, you know that this is the show where we talk about all things sourdough microbakery business. And if you're not, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Caroline. I have been running a sourdough microbakery out of my home for the last 2 years. And for the last year or so, I have been supporting other bakers through this podcast, just giving a lot of practical, tactical business strategies to grow a thriving sourdough bakery. I'm currently in the process of transitioning from a home-based bakery to a small commercial space. So I'm bringing you along for the journey, but also continuing to support the home-based baker, because both the home-based bakers and the ones moving into small commercial spaces are so important for our food economy. Today's episode is one of my favorites. I share this every time, but because it's the first episode of the month, it is a month in review. Feels like I was just sharing July in review, but here we are already recapping August. Time has flown, and I will run through what my month looked like. And as always, the questions that I ask when I review my month are: what works, what didn't, and what am I doing moving forward? How did I learn from it? How will I improve or change or tweak my processes? Maybe drop something and lean into what works better. And so that is the heart behind it. These episodes are great for me because it helps me sit and think critically about what happened in the month, and then try to turn that into something actionable and practical for you as a listener. I feel like sometimes it's so easy for us to just go through the motions and one month rolls into the next and the next. We never really pause to really intentionally think about what's working and what isn't. And I think that is one of the really crucial differences between a thriving bakery or a business in general and one that just goes through the motions without a really high level of planning and intentionality. So with that foundation laid, in these episodes, I always share the format of the month, my gross revenue, and what worked and what didn't, and then, of course, what I'm learning. So we will go ahead and get started. As I have been doing throughout the summer, I only baked twice in the month of August for customers. I baked a lot for my family, actually. So the market where I sell and have been selling for the last 2 years is every second and fourth Saturday. And over the summer, I decided to only do the market and skip my opposite week porch pickups just to give myself more margin. I wanted to be able to jump in the pool with the kids more often and just have a slower summer, knowing that the fall and the rest of the year and then just moving forward is really going to speed up. And so with that said, my revenue had been a lot lower than it would be during a normal part of the year. And that was by design and intentional. And I knew it would happen. So my overall gross revenue for the month of August was $3,245. That was from my second Saturday market day and my fourth Saturday market day. I had a request that I break that down to a little more detail. And so I'm going to share more of the quantities of what I sold and what were the top sellers. So I've written a few notes here. The very first market, the revenue was $1,604. That was split between pre-orders. About 600 of that was pre-orders, and then the remainder was people who just walked up to the market and purchased for off the table. And I did sell out at this market right around 11:30 or 12. So there was space where I could have brought the product for the walkups, but I'm maxed out, also trying not to burn out over the summer. And so I had to keep my quantities at a point where I could manage them. So I took a look at my top products for this market and broke them down by what sold the most. The very first top seller was my bundle of 2 mini loaves. So I've switched from doing my inclusion loaves as a 900-gram loaf to doing them half size and selling them for either 2 for $12 or 1 for $7. Originally, all of my inclusion loaves were a 900-gram loaf for $12, and so now they're 450-gram loaves, and people can mix and match, and they've been really liking that. The feedback overall has been extremely positive with the smaller inclusion loaves. So usually I bring between 4 and 6 flavors, and those sold really well at the first market. The second top product was my English muffins. I brought those for a first come, first serve. I didn't put them on my pre-order menu, and I brought 19 packs, and they sell every single time like hotcakes. Predictable and extremely popular. And then my third top seller was my sandwich bread, and I sold 30 loaves of that to the walkups. On the pre-order side, I just pre-sold 13 original loaves, 16 sandwich loaves, 4 Italian herb focaccia, and 4 olive oil and sea salt focaccia. And then the extras that I had on my table for people just walking up were cookies, brownies, and muffins. I sell my cookies in a 2-pack for about $6. Brownies, I have taken a break from for a while. I mentioned this in my last episode. They are really expensive, and I had been selling them as a 4x4 square because I baked them in an 8x8 pan. And I realized that my margins for that square were just really low. And so I have been selling them being a little 2x4 rectangle. And that allows me to price them at a point that is close to what I was charging for the 4x4s, but it allows me to get more out of the pan and raise the price enough that it brings my margins into a better range. And those are super popular. They sell really well, even though they're a little bit smaller. They are very rich. And as people try them once, that's one of those things that they request every time they come back. For the second market, my overall revenue was really close. It was $1,641. My top sellers were my original loaves. I brought a lot more of those this time. So I sold 26 originals and then 25 individual minis and 21 2-cookie packs. Those were my top sellers to walk-ups. For the pre-orders, I sold 14 original, 14 sandwich, 3 of each focaccia, 10 6-packs of jumbo coffee cake muffins, and 2 Baker's dozens of my chocolate chip cookies. Usually on my pre-order menu, I just do the staples, the original loaves, the sandwich bread, the focaccia, and then the dozen cookies. And then occasionally, like in this case, I'll add in something that I know is going to sell really well. So in this case, I wanted to bump my revenue up a bit in the pre-orders. And so I knew if I put the jumbo packs of coffee cake muffins, that would quickly bump up my pre-order menu pretty well. My pre-order sales for my first market were $370, and then the remainder of my first market's revenue was walk-ups. For my second market, my pre-order revenue was at $600, and the remainder was walk-ups. So they would have been really close, but those extra 10 boxes of 6 jumbo cookies, they were 20 each, that bumped up my pre-orders by about $200. So overall recap of the entire month, what worked really well, minis continue to shine. The customers are really liking the mix and match option. They like that they can buy the smaller ones and not have to worry about it going stale before they can eat the whole thing. They like to grab several and stick them in the freezer. I've only had 1 or 2 people who seem like they would have preferred the larger loaf, but no one has actually complained at all. So I'm going to keep doing that. The sandwich loaves, I sell those really well, especially over the summer. I definitely notice in the summer that my original loaves drop down and the sandwich loaves rise in popularity. And so I've been trying to bring more sandwich loaves, and every time I try to go past my capacity that I know is 24, I just have issues. So I had an issue for the first market with sandwich breads where I tried to do 36 and I ended up with an issue of the fridge door not sealing. And so I lost the dough of about 6 of those loaves. And then for the second market, I went back to my set known quantity of 24. They were absolutely beautiful. I think the prettiest sandwich loaves that I've made all summer. I know that 24 is my capacity because that's what I can do in the mixer. That's how many loaf pans I have. I know how they fit in a cold proofing bin. So the sandwich bread, I put 12 loaves worth in each bin and cold proof them overnight. And then I shape them the next day and put them in loaf pans and let them just get a little puffy for an hour or 2 before I pop them in the oven. that works at the quantity of 24, but for whatever reason, I found that when I try to push past that, try to get more dough in the bin, try to shuffle around and use different loaf pans or have dough waiting and then pop it into the loaf pan, it just never quite works. It always leaves me frustrated, and I find that I haven't liked the results. All that to say, there's a time to push the limits, see what works, but sometimes it's just clear that there's a capacity limit and you are best off staying there with certain things. Another thing that I tried and that did work really well was exploring using rings for my English muffins. So my English muffins, like I mentioned, are really popular. They sell really well for me. And I know that anytime I have English muffins on the menu, that's just going to be a really popular week and a higher revenue day. However, English muffins are incredibly hands-on. I have to measure them individually, roll them individually, and then my process was using an electric griddle. So it was 4 minutes per side, and then finish them in the oven for 8 minutes. Just so much babysitting. And when I'm doing 10 or 20 dozen of those, it takes upwards of 3 hours of just sitting there, standing really. And it's just not fun. So all that to say, I tried using rings. I saw some people talking about it. So I looked at multiple people's processes and took a few bits and pieces from here and there. And the process that I used took a little bit of trial and error, but ultimately I found that if I preheated my sheet pans and my rings in my oven at 400 degrees, and then took my fully proofed dough, and I use a little spatula for this, and I coat the dough balls in semolina flour before they're proofed. So they're nice and soft and fluffy and proofed on a cookie sheet. I scoop them up and put them in that hot ring, and then put the hot sheet pan on top. Pop it all in the oven for about 16 to 18 minutes at 400 degrees. And it's a much less hands-on process. They bake up pretty well. They come out, the color is really nice. They don't have quite the fluffiness as they do on the griddle, just the rounded edges. They're much more squared off. But overall, for the process improvement, for the efficiency trade-off, I think I'm going to keep doing it that way, at least for a while, because it just saves so much hands-on time. And so now I can use that hands-on time for something else too, or even sit down. I sold out of both markets somewhere between 11:30 and noon. So both were really great. A ton of community support and buzz as I've announced the opening of my storefront. The very first market, I passed out 48 cookies. I had them individually wrapped with stickers on them and shared with people the news about opening my bakery. And the sticker had a QR code inviting them to follow along. So I have set up a text list where I share updates now and then about what's going on with the bakery. And so I let them know, 48 people, new people, regulars, but local people, let them know what's coming. And the excitement and support has been so good. The second market was the same. So many people so excited. It's amazing the power of social media, because just about everyone local who came into my booth knew about that storefront opening. And a lot of them knew because of one reel that I shared, which is crazy. I don't usually have reels gain a ton of traction, but this one just had a lot higher views than normal. And it seems like just a huge amount of the community has seen it. So that's been really fun. It's fun that they're excited. It's a little bit nerve-wracking. So to get back on track a little bit with the recap here, talked about some of the things that worked, a little bit more of what didn't work / failed a little bit. For the first market, I just ran out of time. I ran out of steam, but I ran out of time. So I had dough ready for pizza crust and I didn't end up baking it. I had a handful of customers request pizza crusts or ask where they were, if I had any. And so a few people, I said, you know what, I have the dough, but it didn't make it to the market. So I will bake it for you and you can pick it up from my porch this week. And so I had 3 or 4 people do that. I mentioned the fridge issue that I lost some sandwich dough to. I troubleshot that. It was due to the placement of a lid on one of the shelves and the door shelf. It just meant that it couldn't fully seal, unfortunately. But now I know, and that won't happen again. And one more little fail was I just dropped a whole pan of brownies, just flop right on the floor. It was very disappointing, some lost revenue, but our family had a whole pan of brownies to enjoy because they still taste good, even though they're all mangled up after being dropped. It did drop right side up. And then I got a pretty good slice on my finger. I shared that on Instagram. I was going fast for that second market, scoring some of my final loaves, and had a ton of momentum. And I guess I must have reached in to move a loaf and just sliced my finger real good. So my husband is a firefighter paramedic. He was on shift, but I FaceTimed him and I said, hey, I don't know. I might have hit the bell. I had got a pretty good slice. Should I go to urgent care? He was able to get off work for a minute and come up, check on me, bandage me up. And he determined that I didn't need stitches. So thankfully, I just muscled through and finished. Thankfully, I was winding down for the day. Overall, the most bottlenecky part of my process for these markets these days is packaging. Even when I pre-print labels, which I'm not always great at, but even when I do, it's just so time consuming. And being at the end of the day, it's just exhausting. If I was continuing to bake out of my home beyond this next month or so, I would certainly hire help. Sometimes I do hire my kids to help with labeling, and that helps some, but usually it's towards the end of the day, and I just have to push through. So I would figure out a way to streamline that and bring in some help to get that final push. Now, since I am transitioning into a commercial space, that's going to change a little bit because I can sell bread just right off the rack. Here in Texas, for cottage bakers, we have to have everything labeled and sealed at home before it goes to the market. So I can't have it like in a bin, put it in a bag at the market. But once I'm in a commercial space, I will be able to do that. And so that will save a lot of that time spent packaging, since I can just have it all up on a cooling rack, displayed, let people know it's available. They can tell me and can pop it in a plain brown bag. Very excited for that. Now, if I do wholesale, I do still need to package everything. I don't know for sure if I will explore wholesale or not, but that will need to happen if I do. And then, of course, as I still will show up at the markets, once I'm in a commercial space, I can bring the products like in a pastry case for my cookies and then just slide them into packaging when people purchase them. Or I can have my bread in bins instead of individually packaged and let people just select their products and I can pop them in a bag. So packaging will ease up once I am fully licensed and ready to go out of the commercial space. But like I said, if I were giving you advice as a home baker and you're in the same place as me where packaging is just drudgery, I would say look for ways to streamline, print labels ahead as much as possible, see what you can delegate. And if you are just at a point where that final push that takes so long at the end of the day is just wearing you out, to see if you can bring someone in to help you. Even if it's just a best friend and y'all quit on Netflix for the last hour or two of the day and get everything packaged, that could just make it feel much more manageable. All right. And then wrapping up the recap on the market side, I had shared quite a bit that I intentionally scaled back in the summer. That was needed. It was really good. It was healthy. But I knew that when fall comes, we'd be ramping up. So as I move forward and look forward, I will be adding in some pop-ups. For example, this coming week, I'm going to be baking from home, but then allow a pickup here at the new bakery. I'm excited to bring people in, let them catch the vision, and give them a little sneak peek. And that will also generate more revenue and just get me baking more. It's been nice to have just the 2 bakes, but I have found that I've been missing it in between. So that'll feel good. I'm excited for that. I have already shared that I'm officially in the new bakery space. I signed the lease on August 1. So I've had it for a full month. I have 2 months total until October 1 to get set up before rent kicks in. It's fairly common in a commercial lease to have a couple of months without rent while you are getting all set up. And then the rent commences after 30, 60, occasionally 90 days. In these 2 months, I am doing all the things. I've put in my applications for the food establishment permit, insurance, internet, security, all of that. Also painting, wallpapering, planning, meeting with the interior designer. It's really fun and energizing. And I cannot wait to just be open. But this lead up is needed and really good. I will be honest, I'm doing this all on a very shoestring budget. So I'm self-funding a lot of it, but I'm also inviting the community to help crowdfund a portion. So that's going to cover some of the equipment, things like shelving, etc. I'm using a platform called iFund Women, which is very similar to Kickstarter. The biggest distinction is Kickstarter is all or nothing, whereas iFund Women is not. So iFund Women, whether you reach your full funding goal or not, you still receive what the community contributes. So I get to offer some fun perks like discount workshop tickets and bread at a discount, things like that, and allow people to take part in this and feel like they are helping bring this to life because they are. And it just makes sense to allow the community to be a part of this. So I'm hoping to order the oven. I will ultimately use 2 ovens, but I'll start with one and get that order placed this week so that it can arrive before my hopeful opening day, which is the first week of October. I think I'm going to wait to share which oven I'm going with and let you all know once it's in the space, because I'm sure there's a lot of curiosity around that. Put a lot of thought into it. I'm really excited about the route I'm going. And overall, personally, I feel like the entire year of 2025 has been this experience of learning to step into the role as CEO and really see myself that way and trust the decisions that I'm making and embody that and project that to the people that I encounter. I think that is something that we will always be learning, but I feel as though this year and even just these last couple of months, I am learning more and more how to show up with confidence, how to say yes to help when it's offered, how to invite people into the story. And that's been a really neat experience and continuing to evolve and take shape. But I know that it will only continue as the responsibilities here, as I have staff and more people. And inevitably, there will be people who don't love every decision that I make or have a negative experience. And so as I just learn how to react to those, respond, and continue with integrity and respect and excellent customer service, I just will continue to grow those skills. All right. As we look ahead, the questions I asked are what works, what didn't, and what am I doing moving forward? So looking forward, September will again have 2 markets. So I'm going to continue to show up at the market even after the bakeries open. I have so many regulars who know me there. And so it makes sense to stay there at least through the year, probably beyond, depending on how much help I can get and how much capacity I have. But I also just love the people there. So it feels really bittersweet to think about transitioning from the market to here. So I'm trying to figure out how I can have a little bit of both. But I'll have the 2 markets, second and fourth Saturdays, and then 1 to 2 pop-ups. So for example, this coming week is not a market week, but I'm going to be baking, offer some pre-orders, and instead of them picking up on my front porch like they normally would, they get to pick up here at the bakery on Saturday. And I'm so excited for that. It's just going to feel completely surreal. So I'm aiming for about $1,800 in revenue per market and then $1,200 in revenue per pop-up. So for this coming pop-up, it's September, so I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I'm on track with the revenue for the pre-sales, and then I'll have a little bit of extras as well. I will also be adding in workshops. So 1 or 2 in September, 2 or 3 in October. Very excited about that. The community, very excited for those. I am just going to share a full episode in the next coming month or 2, all about my bakery business model, my initial plans and thoughts. There's a lot that I probably don't know that I don't know. And so as I work in this space, I'm sure I'll have a lot of humble moments of learning and growing and sharing that with you. But I'll make an episode sharing what I am doing now and how I'm operating the workshops, things like that. On the online and podcast side, I, of course, continuing these weekly podcast episodes. You probably noticed, or maybe you haven't, but I have not shown up on social media a whole lot over the summer. And that has been one of those things that I just had to give myself grace and say it's okay to step back from there. So the places to find me reliably are the podcast episodes and then emails. So I do send just about every week an email, and they always have some really fun things in there too. I will be announcing something really exciting for early October. Details will come soon, but for now, I'll tell you to set aside 6 to 8 hours total on October 7th and 8th, so 3 to 4 hours per day. And this is an opportunity for us to work on the business instead of in the business. So step into that CEO business owner role and set ourselves up for a really solid strategic quarter 4. The holiday season is the busiest season for us in general. So many opportunities, so many things to potentially say yes to. And so what's coming in that first week of October for us is going to set you up for a strategic holiday season where you can maximize opportunities, hit your goals, but also have time for the things that matter most. One other decision that I made along the lines of saying no to a good thing for the season is I decided not to reopen the Inner Circle, which is my small group coaching program, until January. So normally I do that every quarter or so. I just wrapped up our last group and I feel very bittersweet about it because I love this group coaching. The dynamics of the group is always so special. And so I just need the space from it this season. So I'm excited to open that up back in January. But I will be offering some very limited, very powerful strategy sessions. There's a wait list for those. I don't have a ton of those available. So these strategy sessions, there are 2 different types. One is a 30-minute targeted session where we just look at one pain point in your business. You will identify the one thing that you want to focus on, and we'll spend 30 minutes and just really dig into it and give you a transformational strategy to move forward and tackle that one pain point. The second one is a 90-minute session. And this one, we look at all 6 of my breadwinner pillars. That is sales, marketing, process optimization, product optimization, lifestyle optimization, and cash flow. And so this is a full business audit, really powerful, focused 90 minutes where you go from feeling overwhelmed and fuzzy in a lot of areas to really clear with a strategy and a big picture vision of how to accomplish your goals in your business. I'm really excited to open these. Like I said, there will just be a few available. There is a wait list with a link down below, so you can put your name on there, even if you don't know for sure if you're interested, but you'll get the information when those open up very soon. So to wrap up, I am so thankful for y'all being a part of this journey. I love being able to share and invite you in and just be transparent about what I'm learning and say, this was a flop. I hope it helps you as well. The transparency is something that is a part of my mission to help other bakers and be real and de-glamorize some of these aspects of the business that I think don't get shared thoroughly enough on social media, but also to say that you can absolutely create a business that you love and that you get excited about and feel so proud of, and that you can serve your family with an income while staying home and having some flexibility. So if this was encouraging to you, if you learned something, if it was maybe inspiring, go ahead and share it with a fellow baker friend who maybe would be encouraged or inspired as well. If you haven't already taken a moment to leave a review for this show, that would also be tremendous. That helps other people find the show as well so that we can all continue baking together and serving our community in this really special way with nourishing, good food and connecting, breaking bread over tables around our communities. I will be back very soon with another episode. The next episode will be part 2 after last week's part 1 of the roadmap to pay yourself $1,000. I'm excited to be back and wrap that up. And then the rest of the episodes coming in September will be really great as well. Again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen and be a part of this bakery journey. I am so proud of what you're building and I am cheering you on. We'll be back soon with a new episode. But until then, happy baking.